Hello, everyone. Welcome to, believe it or not, Module 4. We've made it to the end. This is planning remote tasks that guarantee autonomous learning. It is possible. So we are going to get started now. And this is what Module 4 is going to be about. Assessing remotely. How do we go about it? So let me start, as I usually do, by sharing with you the aims of this session. In this module 4, we will be discussing assessment, the different types of assessment, and we will also be making reference to whether all the types of assessment are possible in this reality. We will be talking about the role of feedback, and again, how is it that we teachers can provide feedback during online teaching and learning. And of course, we will be exploring remote assessment possibilities. We will be discussing considerations and best practices. And since this is Module 4, we will be reaching conclusions. So let us move on. I think it's really very important that we somehow a little bit recap what is it that we have discussed before this module. And if you pay attention, we have been emphasizing how important it is, both in a traditional context, but in this context as well, that we focus on planning, all right? So I have included or summarized on this slide these 9 events of instruction that are really very important to bear in mind. And if you pay attention, we are starting by gaining our students' attention. And this is why usually a lesson begins with this lead-in and this warm-up, this instance in which we make students aware of the fact that now they have to get ready for the lesson and they have to switch on to English. We gain our attention, our students' attention, and we have to try to use whatever we have at our disposal to actually hook our students, all right? So sometimes we can use a personal story, or we might be using a video, we might be using a question, we might be using a song, we might be using a quote from somebody who is famous and we know our students are going to be interested in. We gain their attention. Of course, something we devoted a lot of time to in Module 3 has to do with how important learning objectives are, and also how important it is that we socialize these objectives with our students. Usually we teachers plan and we have our objectives, but I've been discussing how important it is that not only do we teachers know where we are going, where we want to go, and how we are going to get there, but how important it is that also learners know where they are going and what is it that they will be learning to get there. So we are gaining our students' attention. We are sharing with them the learning objectives of a unit, but also the learning objectives of a lesson in particular. And then there was this moment of the lesson which we discussed previously, which is a moment in which we activate our students' prior knowledge, their prior learning. So it's really very important that when we plan lessons, and this works both for the traditional context, but also this new reality, that there is a connecting thread between lessons. So you might very well get started by activating or tapping on what the students learned in a previous lesson. If you will be talking or reading about any topic in particular, you probably want to find out what is it that students already know about it. So notice how we are moving from gaining their attention. We are telling them what is it that we want them to be able to do by the end of a unit or by the end of a lesson. We get started in this stage, which we call elicitation, by activating their prior knowledge. And of course, then there is this moment, and we have also devoted a lot of time to this. This is the moment when we have to present the new. And something that you probably remember is that we have been emphasizing how important it is that whatever we present, whether it is vocabulary, grammar, it might be a concept, it might be a reading strategy or a writing strategy or a listening strategy, whatever we are presenting, it is really very important that we present it in an enabling context. But at the same time, my dear teachers, it is really very important that you tell them why they will be learning this, whatever that is. Why is it that they are learning this grammar topic or this vocabulary? And that is why we've been talking about the importance of presenting learning objectives, because you tell them we will be learning this because you will need it, remember, and this is related to the learning objective. So for example, you might be telling your class, by the end of this unit or by the end of this lesson, you will be talking about your pet. So now I will present you with vocabulary about animals' parts of the body. Why do you think we are learning this? Oh, because by the end of the lesson or unit, I will be talking about my pet. And one of the things that probably I might want to say about my pet is probably describing my pet physically. So I need this vocabulary. So it's really very important that you see that once you present the learning objectives, whatever you will be presenting afterwards needs to be related to those learning objectives. Now, something again which we have been discussing quite a lot over the past modules is how important it is that from the presentation to the practice, we provide guidance. And again, this is not only now that our students are not with us in the classroom, this applies to the classroom, to the traditional classroom as well. But we've been discussing how necessary it is that this guidance is extra now, that students will probably be doing a lot of work without our direct supervision. So we've been talking about guidance, we've called it scaffolding, we've used the analogy of the bicycle with the training wheels. So we present content, we provide guidance, and remember that we've been mentioning how important it is to use examples, give students plenty of support so that they feel secure, they feel ready to now do what research says has to be done. After the presentation of the new, and again, presentation of the new in relation to the learning objectives and being presented in a context, now of course students need to practice. And something that we did also devote a lot of time to in Module 3, if I'm not mistaken, is that of course when we talk about practice, we need to move from easy to more complex. All right? We need to boost our students' confidence as they are mastering the new. That is why we discussed the importance of moving from controlled practice to freer practice, and in the middle, less controlled practice. And something that you will probably remember is that we made it clear as for what is it that controlled practice and freer practice do not have in common, which happens to be the fact that controlled practice aims at accuracy. So we are getting students to practice the new in quite a repetitive manner. And once we see that they are gaining confidence, we start letting go a little bit and we move to less controlled practice, where, of course, the focus is not accuracy, although it is, but we are moving on to a little bit more of fluency. All right? And something we are moving slowly and carefully to the focus, the main objective of Module 4, which happens to be assessment. As you can see, after the practice stage, and of course, it's not only after, but it might be like in between controlled practice and freer practice, it's really very important that students are provided with feedback. Feedback is absolutely necessary for students to understand where they are, and if they've got, and I'm going to be using now traffic lights, this feedback is going to tell our students if they've got green light to move on. I mean, like, you've got this, let's keep moving. If there is this yellow light, like, okay, you're doing fine, but you still need to keep practicing, or this was not very clear. Or if we've got a red light, which means let us stop here, we need to practice more, something is not clear, this student in particular needs more time. So feedback is critical, of course, in a traditional classroom, but in this reality as well. And something that I mentioned when we started talking about considering this question of planning remote tasks, something that I mentioned as a big mistake is just to send the assignment or the remote task or homework and just forget about it, okay? Not only do our students need guidance, not only do they need scaffolding, but they also need effective feedback. And we will be talking about this today. And of course, as you can see, we've got the word assessment. We need to assess our students' performance. And if you pay attention, we've got the word performance there, which means that we have to assess, look, gain evidence, not only during the practice stage, but in the stage that comes afterwards, which happens to be application. So we need to assess, give feedback, accompany, and scaffold as students move from controlled practice to freer practice and from freer practice to application. And when we talk about application, we are talking about students performing, okay, language-wise, they are performing, they are putting into practice what they've learned. And of course, we need to assess it. Now, something else, and this is how we move on with the cycle, we've got that we need to enhance retention and this possibility of students transferring. So this is what I made reference to in a previous module when I was using the analogy of the bicycle. Okay, we are using the training wheels, then I'm removing one of the wheels, then I remove the two wheels, and then I'm going to give you lots of opportunities to ride your bicycle in the water, on the sand, on the snow, like different situations where you will be transferring the new. And this is how we definitely close the cycle, and this is how we promote retention, of course. And this was another stage we made reference to, which is the follow-up. Follow-up means I will continue recycling the newly learned until it becomes my students' own. All right?